Dr. Castleberry back with part 2 of our asynchronous dialogue, taking student questions from COM 3533, Public Relations, Advertising, Brand Management. And you all have questions detailing television and advertising and the interrelationship between the two. And let's jump right back into it. Let's take a couple of questions from Britton. And he starts with the Integrated Marketing Communication book from Blakeman. Do you think that internet advertising is the answer to the downsides of TV advertising, including costs, the fleeting messages, and so on? Yes, but here's a term that's important for us to remember and kind of latch onto. It's about narrowcasting, all right? Now it's focused, advertising is more focused on smaller demographics, finding that niche audience that's going to be not just a potential consumer, but the zealot for your product. And when you get to that level of focus group, your dollar is you might be spending more per customer, but your investment is more likely to land in the right kind of place where it's going to have actual impact, right? An impact factor. Yeah, I think that answers that. Popular culture, Marcel Danesi, chapter 8. Do you think comedic or real TV ads are more, it says affective, and a lot of people are using this word affective, and I'm curious, there's like something going on in the air. Do we mean effective, right? So when we say effective or effective, we're talking about cause and effect. So it's not cause and effect. Affect, typically, you get exposure to affect in psychology. It usually has to do with emotional response, emotional conditioning. So I just want to make sure, and this is not, I'm not singling out a single individual. There are at least 3 or 4 people consistently using this word affect or affective. And I don't know if we're all always using it in the right way. So double check the A and the E there. The what tone execution technique do you think is most effective typically, or is you know what? That's a different question, and I crossed it out. It was another affective question. All right. Do you think comedic or real TV ads are more effective? Doesn't matter. That's my answer. Doesn't matter. Does the message align with the product? All that matters, right? Don't advertise a funeral home with a comedic, ad. I mean, don't advertise a dog falling in a blender for, Nathan's hot dogs. You see where we're going there. Does the message align with the product, right? Are you going to get yourself in trouble? Are you going to drive down your dollars? Are you going to get consumer complaints? Don't think people won't pick up a phone still and call a company and complain. They will. In fact, never mind. It's probably a story I don't want to tell. Old ad stories. Are internet ads actually different than from TV ads? They can be. Or are they just housed in different locations? Internet legitimized, let's put it this way. A couple of things the internet helped legitimize. The 15-second commercial spot, and now we see even the 5-second internet ad. And those aren't commonplace on television, not necessarily commonplace on radio either, although the 15-second bumper is practiced in radio. And I recall you could do that kind of buy, but you would have to buy it in groups. And so it can have a role, but typically the 30 and the 1 minute are the predominant uses. We do see both of those on the internet. And we do see a lot of crossover, right? So all of the ads that ran on the Super Bowl, for example, more than ever, they're available in advance online, on social media. They're already putting them out there. And it's interesting because used to it was all about the reveal during the Super Bowl. Now they're showing us the ad in advance and then saying, oh, it's going to air on the Super Bowl, as if to suggest, okay, now I need to go rewatch it. It's funny. And you would think that sounds like a ridiculous strategy. But, I mean, they wouldn't frame it that way if it wasn't an appeal point to certain audiences. Okay, answered that. all right, ads, fads, and consumer culture from Arthur Asa Berger. Is buying off-brand products still essentially the same as buying brand products? Just because a product doesn't bear a conventional name, word drop, doesn't mean there is no brand behind it. Correct. Even the generic brands are brands. And guess what? Generic brands, super profitable. I mean, how in the world do you think they're building so many Dollar Generals, right? Dollar General came about as that alternative option, right? We can't afford to build a Walmart in this location. We can't we can't afford to carry everything. But let's have like just a generic version in a tiny shop, and we can still sell it a little bit cheaper than the gas station right next door. Boom, next one, right, 100 yards down. Let's put in another Dollar General. Absolutely. Generic brands are still brands. Equate? I mean, what's the stock price on Equate? Why are we not all buying Equate stocks? Here's some questions from Tyler. Integrated marketing communication question to start. After reading what the book had to say on testimonies and celebrities, do you think that this is still an effective way to reach a majority of the audience? I personally feel as if it's an outdated version. Fair enough. Do I think, just my emotional, intellectual reaction? Yes, it's still effective, and I actually have evidence or proof, right? So I can back up my claim, making my thoughts more valuable than if I was just like stabbing in the dark here. And that would be, I would say, if we're still seeing it, then it's still an effective strategy. Yeah, especially, and hey, we're all adults here, right? Especially on children. Oh my goodness. Like, ads still work on children today, just like they did in the 80s, just like they did in the 50s. You think children aren't susceptible to ads? That's why a lot of our FCC laws and things like that were regulated to begin with. The danger of how it could penetrate and negatively impact within that quote unquote nuclear home, right? Within the sacred space of the family. And we've, demolished these barriers, and children are often kind of just left to their own, to kind of, wander not only the televisual stations, but now, the internet. And we understand that comes with a lot of potential risks and concerns, and just that doesn't even have to be harmful content, right? That sort of offensive content can just be that overstimulation, that unmonitored abusive amount of time. The media effects will take their toll, right? This is why in schools now, schools are riddled with attention span issues, and certainly with smartphones becoming the commonplace norm, adults, right, grown-ups, are struggling with these same issues. We see it. Okay. I personally think it is interesting how much pre-production goes into commercials. Most of the time I like to think it's not that hard, but it clearly is. How long do you think the average prep work and time does it take to shoot a 30-second ad? Sorry, I'm editing on the fly here. Let me say this. I've been a part of ad agencies that can conceptualize, move from start to finish, pre-production, post-production to television in half a week. Okay, I've been under job shadow, worked with people that can move that fast. It's got to be a seamless process. They've got to have it down. It's relatively straightforward advertising when it is. On the other hand, it can take many months or longer, depending on X factors: cost, the campaign, decision making, right? Approvals, timing, right? Budgetary restraints, X, Y, Z. So you can run the gambit both ways. Let's all remember, though, time is money, right? Pop culture introductory perspectives, the Marcel Danisi text overall question, do you think writing an ad for TV is harder or easier? Which I would follow up, then what, right? Harder or easier than what? I could see how the image side of it can make it easier and harder for some people. So I was curious if you had experience or thoughts. Well, I have experience and thoughts on this. It is easier to produce audio ads. Guess what? That's why we're producing audio ads in like an accelerated course like this, right? It is easier. The production costs are way lower, and there are far fewer issues you're going to run into or things you need to execute on a planning level. Okay, so let's run down some of the areas that are impacted if it has a visual component, right? So TV versus, we'll assume, maybe radio. Cost, right? The ad campaign itself, is it fitting into a larger structure? Decision making, timing. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my wrong response. I knew something was off there. Visuals take more time, visuals take more money, visuals take more people, visuals require more labor. Let's think about, you have to light every single shot in your video. Are you lighting it consistently? You've got to tweak that in post, whether you did it well or did it poorly. You have visual aids you're potentially implementing, right? We're talking graphics now, graphic design work, graphic designers. That's fees, or that's in-house, or that's whoever. You've got probably different pricing tiers of television versus radio. You have casting that you might. It could be the same as voice work, but it's usually a smaller amount of cast with audio based stuff. You can, there are a million ways why, that's a big word, that's too high a number, but you know what I mean, casual speak, why it is more difficult. Also, are you visionary? Can you write a narrative that is smart and can be easily followed at the same time in 30 seconds? And a lot of times, many audio ads are simply just talking ads, and they're, it's some narration, and I don't want to belittle that, because it's an exceptional process, and I think just when it works, it really works. But the visual component is exponentially more difficult. That's why television was the medium that came after radio, right? There needed to be more, and that's why television is such a fascinating history to study and explore, is all of the technological changes and the changes in sort of style and presentation and production practices and methods that come over time. So yeah, a little bit of insight there. Overall question, are TV advertisements still good to use today with all of the streaming networks and people recording shows, DVR, that sort of thing? What was that? What was the DVR brand? TiVo? Do people still TiVo? I know for me personally, I don't know, that's almost a double negative, how much I watch TV. And this reading has made me think about how effective it really is. I used to think it was extremely better than radio, but now I believe it might not be too big of a difference. All right. Questions. Ads still good with versus streaming age. Depends on the program. Local news, for example. Local news is still good to advertise on local news? Yes. Are you a local company? Yes. Regional company even? Yes. Local news, a go-to place. That's a place where people are watching it live. They're not fast-forwarding commercials necessarily. It's going to be seen by a huge ratio of people, potentially consumers with money. Super Bowl, yes, 150 million people, live audience. They're catching it. They might be doing other things, but people stop all the time. I mean, if your commercial stands out, they're gonna check it out. Both have. But in terms of radio, in terms of television, yes, both have lost substantial live viewership over time. It is part of the trick. It is part of the problem. And there are ways you can absolutely waste money out there when you're doing ad buys. That's why there's certain strategies that you have to be patient and buy into, no pun intended, and you know, you can still see results. It is getting more difficult. You do need to also be ready to diversify. Hang tight. Let's grab some more questions in a bit.